Welcome to How to Play Outlaws 3rd edition. Introducing the characters. Here we have Tom. Every character in Outlaws is represented by 2 counters and 4 cards. Here we have Tom's counter, which is double-sided, one side showing him standing and the other side prone. We're reminded that his brawl skills is reduced. We have an action counter because it's a chipped activated game system. We have a unique character card and a generic character card. So every character has a unique character card. Here we can see the depiction of Tom as on his counter here, the name, a silhouette of the character, and all new in 3rd edition is that each character card has a unique silhouette. For example, here's Lee. Also, owners of previous editions have noticed that we now have these body locations marked on here. So we have 2 leg locations, a belly location, left arm, shoulder, right arm, shoulder, head and chest. And the chest is marked with a ×2 because that can actually hold 2 wound counters. We have Tom's attributes on the side here. So all characters have the same 5 attributes: handgun skill, a rifle skill, a shotgun skill, a riding skill and a brawl skill. So here we can see that Tom has a handgun skill of +2, and we can see we have 3 little handgun icons here. Now this was a rule that was originally an optional rule in the previous edition, but players liked it and it allowed us to differentiate the character a little bit more, so it's gone into the core rules of the game. So these 3 gun symbols relate to, here's the play aid, and we can see on here that the 3 gun symbols means that all 4 gun actions, shoot actions, are available to that character for a handgun in this case, because this is a handgun. So he can shoot, he can take a steady aim, he can take a best shot, and he can also fan the weapon. Okay. Here we can see that the rifle skill is 2. Again, we've got a +2 skill here. So the 2 rifles means that here we can see that he can take a shoot, a steady aim, a fanning, but he's unable to take a best shot, just not quite as skilled in that weapon as he with a handgun. The shotgun, we've got a skill of +0 and one shotgun icon, which is the lowest icon. It means he can just take a standard shoot action, not particularly skilled with that weapon at all. We have a riding and a brawling action, which we'll come to later. Each character has its own unique skill. In this case, we can see Tom is ambidextrous, which means he may fire a handgun on either hand with no penalty. And this is reflected up here, where it says right, left-handed. Usually a character would be right or left-handed, usually right, but there's left-handed characters as well. That's the unique character card. And over here we have a generic character card, and together they make the character card that gets referred to in the rules. Less changes on this in the 3rd edition. It's aesthetically changed, but ultimately it has the same issue. So we have left and right-handed and carried. So let's give Tom carrying a Colt 41, and he's got let's say 2 complete reloads for that weapon. Fully loaded to begin with, so we use the ammo track to hold it here. Tom can take an action during the game to move from anything from the carried box to his hand. He's right or left-handed, but he can move it to his right hand to show that he's now carried and can be fired. Okay, so that's the character card. Now we place Tom on the board. What can Tom see? Well, the game uses a 90-degree field of vision, which is shown on the play aid here, that emanate from the square the character's in to 3, 5, 7 and adds 2 each time in the way the character's facing. So we could see this spreading out in front of Tom here. So we could easily see all the way along this corridor, but obviously these high objects either side will block his vision. Normally when we track line of sight, the default position is you go from the centre to centre of a square. Okay, so if I place Scott down here, we'll trace line of sight from the centre of Tom's square to the centre of Scott's square. Obviously this one's clear. There will not be an issue that there's not a line of sight there. Things change a little bit when characters start using cover. So in this instance, we've got Tom, we're going to put him in a corner cover position, which is here, which is 90 degrees to the corner. So, sorry, let's put Scott back on there. So here he is, he's peering around the corner. This immediately changes his field of vision. Okay, it doesn't doesn't step out like it did in our previous example here. It's actually a 90 degree in the corner. So here you see an all the way down here and across here, and anything potentially in that area in that 90 degrees can be seen. Obviously high objects will block it again. So it's obvious that Tom can see Scott in this instance. However, when tracing line of sight, you couldn't really trace it from the corner, from the centre of Tom's square, because it passed through the telegraph office. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So here you trace from anywhere on the character's counter. So we could take it from the corner here, okay, to the centre of Scott's counter. There we go, not a problem. If Scott was in a corner cover, it'd be anywhere from anywhere on Tom's counter to anywhere on Scott's counter, and we could see that we'd still have a line of sight between those two. And this is the same as if we're using a door. So here we'll put Scott over here, approaching the Pioneer, and we put Tom in the doorway. At the moment the door's shut, but as soon as Tom touches the door, okay, touches the door depiction, it shows that it's open. That's how we indicate in Outlaws whether the door's open or closed. Open, and there you take it from anywhere on Tom's counter to the centre of Scott's square, because Scott is in the open. The only other variation we have is if we're looking through a window. Okay, so very straightforward, really. If Scott's in the building here, if Tom is away from the window, these characters cannot see each other. Okay, a character needs to be adjacent to the window to be possibly seen by the other character. When adjacent here, Tom will trace his line of sight from the window, anywhere on the window, to, in this case, because it's in an open square, to the centre of Scott's square. Okay, and Scott will trace his line of sight from the centre of his square to anywhere on the window that Tom's looking through. Okay. Scott, however, can see Tom, but can't see outside, because you can only see into the square beyond the window, unless you're adjacent to it like Tom, in which case you can freely see in. Taking actions. Nearly all the characters in Outlaws have 4 actions available to them at the beginning of the game. This may be reduced due to wounds, blows from brawling, or possibly from taking snapshots and using up future actions. So in this instance we have Tom, he's got 4 actions, he's completely healthy at the start of the game. One of the most important, especially when you're starting off in the game, is the action summary chart that's on the play aid. They're all down here, all colour coded. And there's quite a lot, but really you need to concentrate on movement and then whatever weapon your character is loaded with. These are actually repeat themselves quite regularly. You can see that a handgun has a shoot, a steady aim, a best shot, so does a rifle, so does a shotgun. Okay, and there's the 2 Indian actions on there as well. So a basic action is a walk turn action. So you move a square, and you can turn before or after movement. So here's Tom here, and to move, he can move into any of the 3 squares he is facing. He could turn before moving to move into these 3 squares, or he could move and turn afterwards, but you can only do 1 turn per move action. If we look at where he could go here, he could go straight ahead here. It's completely clear. There's no problem with that movement. It cost him 1 action to walk there, and he could turn. He could also go diagonally into this square here. Now, as this cross here is clear, this is a completely valid path and won't cost Tom any more actions. It will only cost him 1. If we look with the horse rail though, if he wanted to go diagonally across here, he would actually have to climb over the horse rail, and that would be a clamber over action, which would be an additional action. So it would cost him 2 actions to move from here to here. Okay, so, you know, Tom wants a bit of dignity. He's not going to go climbing over the horse rail. He's going to go into the telegraph office using these 4 actions. So his first action, he walks forward, he turns. Second action, moves and turns to face the door. Okay. Third action, he will open the door, and this is shown by touching the graphic. That's his third action. The door is now open, and for a 4th action, he can move inside. When he moves inside, he could leave the door open. The purpose for that might be you want other characters to be able to rush past him without having to open the door, or he can just move to here to show that the door closes behind him, and he can of course turn as well. So he could turn all the way around to face the door if he felt someone was pursuing him. Closing the door is a zero cost action, and the zero cost actions are very important to get to grips with these because there's some important tactics involved. So if we look at our zero actions here, we have hit the dirt, which is go prone. Okay, no change of facing is allowed. But let's just move Tom back into the alleyway here, and let's bring Scott on. Scott comes here. Suddenly Tom finds himself in the open. Maybe he's fired at Scott and not been successful. At the moment he has zero cover. Okay, he can for zero action costs flip prone, which will provide him some element of cover. Obviously makes him a sort of a smaller target. The other zero cost actions, one we've just seen, which is close the door. Okay, and the other one is leave a cover position. So let's have a look at cover positions. Okay. Running around in the open is not particularly healthy in Outlaws, so we want to use as much cover as possible. Let's go through the common ones. Okay, so using a corner of a high object, okay, so walls, cacti, this building here, the rocks, high objects, you can use them for corner cover. To show corner cover, here's Tom here. It costs him 1 action point to move into a corner cover position. Okay, so that corner cover has to be in his one of these crosses in his field of vision. He's got 2 here. This is the one he's looking at. And you move the character to a 45-degree angle. He's now in cover from any fire that comes from his field of vision. Okay, any fire within here, his field of vision, his 90-degree field of vision, he would get the cover. Obviously a character here, he won't get any cover from. But the zero actions means he can leave cover. So say he was here, he could pop there, take a cheeky shot and drop back at the end of the turn. Okay, so he doesn't get the return fire. So zero actions are very, very important. Other actions, climbing through a window. Okay, so these are windows marked on the board. Climb through a window takes an entire action. You assume we're lifting the window up or we're breaking through or so, or whatever. But you can turn to face as part of that action and spend a whole turn to go through the window. So that took him whole action. The next turn, he now has the option to move forward. Okay, and of course this low object would have to be clambered over, so that would cost him 2 to get to this square here. The same here, because this cross covers the low object, it would cost him 2 actions to get there. And he could turn and walk this way if you want. 1, 2, same as clambering over, so it doesn't make a huge amount of difference to him in that particular instance. Shooting Outlaws use custom gun die. We have one for handguns, one for rifles, and one here for shotguns. In this little scenario we've set up here, we've got Tom. It's the beginning of his turn. He's got 4 actions available, and there's Lee standing right in front of him, who foolishly has not taken any measures to protect himself. He has absolutely 0 cover. So Tom will take a shot. With 4 actions available, and the fact that Tom has 3 handgun icons here, shows that he can take a shoot action, which costs him 1, a steady aim, which costs him 2, or a best shot that costs him 3. Well, what difference does it make to take these? Well, it's all about the faces on the gun die. If you want to take a shoot action, which costs a single action, there are 3 faces that have a number on. There's a 2, a 4, and a 4. And that's the range in which he will shoot. 1, 2, 3, 4. But of course he has a skill of 2. So if he rolled a 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, he would hit Lee. Okay. If he takes a steady aim, it unlocks a second face. Okay, so on this here we can see it says miss, which would normally happen, but SA, a steady aim, is not a miss. It now has a value of 6, so it's going to hit. And there is a further one that just has BS, best shot, which is an 8, and that's only unlocked if the best shot is taken. And there's one face that always says miss, so regardless of the shot you take, you're always going to miss. So a regular shoot action has about a 50% chance of hitting if within range. And we've already seen that there's a 2 face on here, and a 2 plus 2 would be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That wouldn't count. So in this instance, Tom's going to take a steady aim, which is going to cost him 2 actions. He expends a bullet. He rolls the die. He gets a 2. He adds his 2 to a range of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The shot is missed. Lee has some options to respond, but we're going to go over those later. So what Tom would do, he would take his second shot. Okay, expends another bullet. Okay, and here we have a miss, and only if it's the best shot would it hit. So after those two actions, Tom hasn't managed to hit anything. And don't forget those 0 action costs. Here, Tom could hit the dirt for 0 actions and at least would present a slightly smaller target from Lee when Lee returns fire. Returning to our previous example, let's say that Tom rolled a 4. We know 4 plus his skill of 2 is 6, and the range to Lee is only 5. That's a hit. Next thing we need to look at then is the weapon that Tom is using. And he's using a Colt 41. And the key bit of information in the bottom right hand corner says 1/1. So the last number means the number of wound counters that are drawn, and the first one, how many of those wound counters can be used. This is a 1/1 weapon, so effectively the 1 wound counter you draw is the one that you use. So we'll randomly draw one from the cup and we'll see what we've got. Okay, these are single-sided, and we have a leg wound. Okay, other information on here, we have a little prone character here crossed out. That means if the character using any cover, including prone, this counter would have to be returned. It can't be applied. -2 means that in this case Lee's going to lose 2 actions until this counter gets moved, gets changed, which I'll show you later, and it's going to get slightly better to only 1 action loss. So it's worse when he first receives it. We also get a fall, so the character is going to fall down, and we have a no run condition, which means from the rest of the game Lee will not be able to run. So let's just bring Lee's character card over here. This is a leg wound, so we've got 2 leg spaces. We can apply that on here. Okay, because it says fall, Lee needs to fall over, put him to the prone side. At least now he has some cover. Let's say Tom took his second shot and scored a hit again, and again draws a wound counter. Okay, in this case he's drawn a wound counter that says chest wound, but we can see here that this has a prone counter crossed out. It cannot be applied to any character that has any form of cover, which now Lee has because he's actually now prone. So this cannot be applied, and because only 1 counter has been drawn, that gets returned. However, it's not the end of it for Lee, because the shot was close enough to cause him to flinch. So we actually use an action loss counter and we put that on Lee. So anytime a shot's successful, but however cannot actually be applied because of the cover, it indicates that the shot was very close enough for the character to flinch, to restrict his actions for next turn. When Lee's turn comes around, he starts with 4 actions. He's going to lose 2 from his leg wound and 1 from his action loss. So Lee's will only be able to take 1 action. So he could possibly fire his gun, do a stand to shoot action at Tom, which he misses. That would be the end of Lee's action. At the end of his action phase, we deal with these counters that are on his card. At the end of any character's phase, they look at what tokens they have here. The first thing is the action loss goes. Okay, so that only it's a temporary effect. The next thing is we look at this here now. Because we want to keep the integrity of the wound chip pool here, these get removed and replaced with injury counters. These are the counters that have the bullet marks on them. Okay, this is actually going to become better because we look after the slash. When we remove it, it's only going to be replaced with a 1 leg wound. We've got a fall, but we've also got a no run. So we need to find an injury counter that has no run marked in it. This gets replaced on the leg. This gets returned back to the chip pool. And now we've got Lee here. He's now permanently reduced to 3 actions. Let's reset things again. And this time we've replaced Tom's Colt 41 with a Spencer carbine. Not only does this use a different dice, we can see rifles generally being more accurate. This is a 1-2 weapon, so 2 wound counters are drawn, only 1 of which is applied. So let's see how that works. So we've got the same situation here. A shoot counter for a rifle is always 2 actions. And again, there are various responses Lee could have, especially if Lee was armed with a handgun, and we'll look at responses in a few moments. So let's let Tom take his shot. There he fires, uses a bullet from his Spencer carbine. Okay, he rolls a 2 plus his 2 skill here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It would have been a miss. Okay, for the sake of example, let's put a 4 on here. These numbers, as you can see, get a lot larger. Okay, so let's take a 4 plus his 2. We have a hit this time. When you draw multiple chits, wound chits, you draw them one at a time, as before. Okay, and after each draw, you've got to decide whether you want to use that counter or not. Now we've got Lee standing up again, so he's got no cover at all. So here we have a right shoulder, drops held, can't use arm. Well, I tell you what, if Lee was right-handed holding a handgun, I'd definitely go for that one. If, for instance, we said Lee was prone, this counter could not be applied, so this would have to go back anyway. So let's put him prone and say, okay, I can't use that counter. Goes back in there, shake it up, and because it's a 1-2 counter, we can draw another counter. We pull it up, and again we can see this one also has a prone mark on it. That cannot be applied either. The shot missed, but it's close enough, and of course the action loss goes on. Okay, it made him flinch. So some weapons you draw several of these. Most of the handguns you only draw one. The only time with handguns you can really draw more is if you get an aiming bonus. So let's move the characters closer together. Okay, so now they are standing within sort of 10 feet of each other. Tom fires, and let's, for instance, let's give him a 4 result. 4 plus his handgun of skill of 2 would give him a 6. We'll just put his his handgun back on there. Let's make him carry that one, and we will put the pistol ammo on there. So he'll fire his shot. Got a 4 plus his skill of 2 gives him a 6. The range to Lee is 1, 2. So 6 is more than twice, or twice equal or more than the distance to Lee. He gets an aiming bonus, which means now with a handgun he could draw 2 tokens. Again, you only draw them one at a time. And if the first counter you draw is a jam, your weapon jams. Okay, what we got here? So we've got Lee standing up. So we've got left arm, drop held. Let's say Lee's holding a handgun in his right hand. I don't particularly want that one. It goes back in. And because we've got the aim bonus, it allows us to draw another. And here we have a belly wound. 2 minus 2 actions. It's going to come -3. So it's a wound that's going to get worse. Fall and no run. So that would seem an obvious one to put onto his belly and make Lee fall down again. So that's how the basic system works. At the end of Lee's turn, the action loss would get removed, and this would be replaced by a 3. Now, obviously we could have no run on there, but 3 plus 1 is his 4 actions. This would mean that Lee was out of the game. He's unconscious. Possibly dead, possibly not. You can make a roll at the end of the game, but he's definitely out of the game for the moment. And Lee would spill anything he's holding into that square, so it might be another weapon that a character can pick up, or it might be some ammunition they want to do. That's the basic firing method. Okay, before we leave firing weapons, let's have a quick look at the shotgun, which has changed substantially since the 2nd edition. We set up a little situation here. This time I've given Tom a Whitney shotgun, which is only a single barrel, so it only holds 1 shell at a time. He would, obviously, if you're given a shotgun, you would have several reloads. Let's just give him several reloads carrying there as well. He's got a shotgun skill of 0 and only 1 rifle, so he can only take a shoot shotgun action. The shotgun's this dice here. Tom, who's been hiding behind here, has stood up, and Lee wants to take a shot at Tom. So again, we've got the shotgun dice here. Works the same as the other dice. Obviously, Tom can only take a standard action, a standard shoot action. Okay, we roll the dice, we get a miss. Okay, that's quite tricky, because obviously this will need reloading again after each shot, and it requires 2 actions to reload it. However, if you can get the shotgun to work, it is a very, very effective weapon. In this case, we have, let's move Tom forward. Let's show you the real power of the shotgun. Okay, when you get within 1 or 2 squares of a shotgun, it really becomes quite a lethal weapon. So let's move Tom forward. Let's say Lee scores a 3. Okay, so there's no aim bonus because he's within 2 and Tom's got no shotgun skill. However, it's a successful hit. On the play aid, we can see down here, range 2 squares, it's a 2-2 weapon, which basically means you draw 2 wound counters and use both of them. So draw 1, we have a belly hit 2-1 full. That would go on Lee. And another one, we have a left arm drop held. Okay. So obviously Tom would now fall, Lee would now fall. Got around the wrong way there, haven't I? Lee would now fall, and you can see that a shotgun can be a very effective weapon, causing 3 damage. And quite often you'll find that a single blast from a close range shotgun will be enough to take a character out of action for the rest of the scenario. Let's have a closer look at some of the cover protection that you can get in Outlaws. So here we have Tom, who I've now armed with a Colt 45, and he's in corner cover, firing at Scott, who's now armed with a Spencer carbine. Because these characters are in corner cover, they have a modified field of vision, which is this 90-degree arc. So they can both see each other, and they're both firing at each other within their own field of visions. Therefore, they both get the corner cover. Now, the cover benefits they receive depends a little bit on the weapons they are using. Tom here is holding a handgun. And we can see from your play aid that if you are using corner cover and you have a handgun, you can discard all wounds affecting your legs, your belly and your non-gun arm. Okay, so in the moment he's ambidextrous, so it's a really good benefit. So anything on his left arm would be discarded, assuming that's hidden behind cover. Scott here is with a long gun, he's got the carbine, gets similar benefits, but this time it is only the legs and the belly, both arms will be exposed for firing the gun. In addition, any cover results that include the small crossed out prone icon get discarded. So being in cover is always a good idea. Here we've moved Tom and Scott into the newspaper office, and between them is this low object here, this bench. How's it going to protect them? Well, it depends who's closest to the bench. Okay, in this case we can see that Scott is actually closer to the low object than Tom. Scott will get full benefit from having this low object, and again you can see on here it would be any prone figures, belly and leg hits will be discarded. As Tom is not closer to it, Tom currently has no cover there at all. If we move Tom forward 1, the low object is now not closer to either character, and therefore neither character would gain any benefit from that cover. Snapshots, or reacting to other characters in their turn. Here we have Scott, and Scott is moving to the corner here to take a shot at Tom in the open. Scott moves to a cover action. As soon as he moves to a cover action, he now moves within Tom's field of vision. As soon as a character moves within any other character's field of vision, they may attempt a snapshot action. Now, the snapshot can indeed be a snapshot. It can be a shot attempt, or it could be hitting a deck to gain some extra cover. In order to succeed at doing these actions, you need to roll less or equal to the number of actions you have available. Okay, so in this case, Tom is completely uninjured. If he wished to fire his handgun, he would have to roll 4 or less on his dice roll. If he wanted to take cover, like hit the dirt, he would have to roll 4 or less on this dice. Okay, so let's say for instance he wants to fire his gun, he rolls a 3. He can successfully interrupt Scott's turn, and fire a shot, which would be shot. It would be the cheapest shot you can't take any special shoot actions. It has to be a straightforward shoot action. It should be one action, roll on the dice, may hit or miss. In this case, it looks like it might have been successful. And to show that Tom has taken a snapshot action, we place action losses equal to number of actions taken. In this case, firing a handgun is 1, and put it on here as action loss. In effect, Tom has been using up actions from his future turn. If, say for instance, he fails, okay, so he rolls a 5, doesn't succeed in his snapshot. Okay, can't really do anything else now. Scott will then fire at Tom, and assuming that Tom survives the shot, Tom could then take another snapshot action. Okay, whether he'd want to do this or not depends. In this instance, Scott's armed with a long gun. He's moved 2 there. To fire the long gun would take him at least 2 actions. So Scott's not going to be doing anything else this turn. There's no need to take a reaction. But in theory, he could take another snapshot. And it doesn't matter how many successful snapshots you take. You can keep taking for as many as actions you have available. Okay. But obviously, each time you succeed, you're using up future actions. Now Tom only has 3 actions left. He'd roll 3 or less, another action 2 or less. So it gets more tricky. If it was the other way round, so Scott's here with his long gun, and Tom moves into the corner here. Okay, if Scott wants to take a snapshot, well, in order to take a snapshot with a long gun, you need to roll less than the number of actions you have available. So say Scott's uninjured, he would have to roll 3 or less. Okay, but to hit the deck, he would still only have to roll 4 or less. That's some of the basic snapshot actions that you can take there.